Welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast brought to you by Tacticam. Tacticam is by far the easiest way to begin filming your hunts. Whether it's the budget-friendly solo or the 4K 5.0, Tacticam has something for everyone. Check them out at tacticam.com. This season, we're also brought to you by Spartan Forge. Spartan Forge stands at the nexus of machine learning and white-tailed deer hunting to deliver truly intuitive and science-based products that save the hunter time spent scouting, planning, and executing their hunts. You can check them out at spartanforge.ai, and you can also use the code BOWHUNTER to save 25%. The Spartan Forge app is currently being built, and it's expected to launch about June. At that time, the price is going to go up. More data points equals more storage equals more cost. But if you sign up now, you'll be grandfathered in for the entire time that you use the Spartan Forge app. So you'll be locked in at that discounted price. Again, check them out at spartanforge.ai. As most of us know, there are so many climbing methods, sticks, steps, ropes out there that it can be mind-numbing. So many options, how could you know what's right for you? You can't find them all anywhere, and who can you trust for a review? On today's podcast, we talk with someone who has tried them all and someone who has no dog in the fight. Today, we're going to talk to Austin Kantola of Genesis 3D Printing. And Austin has tested all of these sticks because he has to. Austin makes accessories for mobile hunting and needs the sticks to test out the products. Austin has also been one-sticking for a season and has a unique insight into one-sticking as well. For all that and more, stick around and enjoy the episode. But first, I got to welcome our latest Patreon, Drew Servalish. He's from Farmington Hills. And Drew, if you're listening, I know you are, you got to let me know what your shirt size is so I can get that shipped out to you. I've got all the other shirts packaged up, and they're going to ship out tomorrow for everyone else. And I just need your shirt size, Drew. So send me your shirt size. I'll send you your Patreon swag pack. Patreon is a crowdfunding for creators. So basically, it's a small donation to the show that helps us put on the show, do our giveaways, get more equipment, hunts, all of that sort of thing. So basically, it helps cover all the costs for hosting the show, all that sort of things. But we give back as much as we can. So this quarter, we do quarterly giveaways. This quarter, Tacticam is giving away a fisheye package. The fisheye camera, I think, is going to be the solo killer. It's a wide. It's very inexpensive. It has loop mode. They're waterproof. It has an option for external power. All of these things that you're looking for in kind of a point of view camera. Now, this isn't going to be like the fisheyes aren't exactly the one that you're going to capture, that 8x zoom like on the 5.0. But these are going to be 1080 wides, and they've been working really good for us as point of view cameras, kind of that second angle. And Tacticam's giving away one of those packages this quarter. We have one of Dan Infalt's Beast stands on order, so we're going to be giving that away. As we mentioned, Spartan Forge is giving away a subscription, a 1-year subscription to their service, as well as swag pack. So that, and we also work with Basemap. So Basemap is giving away one of their pro packs. Basemap every week has weekly giveaways on there. Whether you pay for the service or not, you can download their free app, and you can go on there, learn how to use the app, and have a chance to win, thousands of dollars worth of prizes every week. So that's pretty awesome. You can use code Chronicles on Basemap to save 20%. It's already super cheap, but that ends up making it $2 a month for the entire country. And the amount of layers that they have is just incredible. So we're really enjoying that. And Jerry Casperson, he actually won the Basemap year-long subscription 2 times in a row. So if you guys were paying attention on the last Instagram Live where I did the giveaway, Jerry said that Brian Barnes is going to be our winner for that. So Brian, I sent you a message through Patreon, but I need to get some of your information too, so I can send that off to Basemap. And then Zinger Fletchings. So Zinger Fletchings, they are 3D printed fletchings that are like a super flexible material, compression fit, and those work awesome. For guys that don't like fletching arrows, for having some in your pack for an out-of-state hunt in case your arrows get messed up or something like that. Just an awesome product, so we're giving away some of those as well. And you can check all that out on our website at www.bowhunterchroniclespodcast.com, or you can go to patreon.com/bowhunterchronicles and sign up. And it starts at like 17 cents a day, so $5 a month. You can really help us out and get a chance to win some great prizes. But if that's not for you, don't worry about it. Just tell somebody about the show. We really do appreciate it. Oh, I almost forgot. We're also giving away a bow. So we're giving away a brand new Bowtech Carbon Zion. So we bought that out of pocket from our friends up at Johnson's Great Outdoors. Mitch is hooking us up with that. And HHA gave us some incredible stuff. Their Tetra sight, so one of their flagship single pin sights, as well as one of their rests. So we're going to have that completely set up for you. All you got to do is go to bowhunterchroniclespodcast.com and click the enter to win button, or you can go on our Instagram and click the link in the bio and sign up there. You don't have to be a Patreon. Patrons get additional entries, but we got to give back to them as well. But anybody, for any listener, and the odds are incredible. So if you haven't signed up with every single email address that you have, you might want to do that. But anyways, just tell somebody about the show, and I hope you enjoy this one. I know you will. Thank you for listening. Hey, everybody. Adam and John back with another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast. In studio today, we have what I'm going to call is the stick guru, amongst other things. But we've got Austin Kantola from Genesis 3D Printing, and we have him in the old studio. We're at John's house here in the bow shop. John was serving up some strings and dishing out knowledge on what not to buy, I guess, a little bit. Austin, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of...
Well, first, how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, doing pretty good.
I guess I should already ask that, but he's been here for a while.
Yeah.
We are waiting on John. So.
No, that's fine. No, I doing pretty good. I'm just ready for summer. Feels like it almost. So, but
right. So let's. I said that you're the stick guy.
Oh yeah.
Right. But what is it that you really do, and then what is it that you also do?
Yeah. So I guess he's calling me the stick guy just because I have to have so many climbing sticks and whatnot. But my business is Genesis 3D Printing. I basically come up with different innovative designs and 3D print them. We were kind of joking. He was asking how many 3D printers I have. I'm up to 9 now that are just running constantly, it seems like. But yeah, so that's pretty much the premise of it all. I mean, I can go into detail, which we will probably, but the sticks and whatnot, that's just part of the game, I guess. I pretty much have all the sticks that are out there, and if I don't, I know somebody close to me that has them because I don't want to buy them.
And that's so you can create your product.
Yes, yeah. And so that's where my products are primarily like accessories that add on to existing climbing methods, sticks or wild edge steps, platforms, stuff like that for saddle hunters, and just to make it easier for people to climb up a tree and hang their setup and whatnot. So yeah, that's pretty much why I have to buy so much. It feels weird buying all this stuff because most of it hasn't hit a tree yet. And it feels very selfish in a way, but at the same time, if I didn't have that stuff, I just couldn't do what I do right now. So,
okay, yeah, we'll get into that like a little bit. I want to say it's pretty interesting. Like, so for you being here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was asking you like what podcast you've been on, and you're just listening off, bam, 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 bam. Like, I don't know, it must have been like maybe 2 years ago. Like, we started getting into saddle hunting, and then it was like, need a rope man and a this and a that and a whatever. And I ended up getting some tenders, and then I saw him like, he's in Ravenna. I'm like, well, I can just pick him up. So we met like in the parking lot of a shady ass bar.
You've never been to that bar?
I have during the daytime.
I wouldn't go there during the night.
But so then we just got to talking and whatever, and then from social media we interact back and forth, and then like he's gone like, I don't know, like basically like in the business, like we were saying, like to scale, like it's from doing like onesie twosie type stuff to like, big,
Full
giant,
production.
large.
Yeah, full production.
And it's been cool to watch. And then I saw like, that's how I found out about like that there was a saddle company here in Grand Rapids. And then so I get to talking to those guys, and, it was just super cool. Like real small here. So like, what's your background in hunting and in business and all of that?
Yeah, so background in hunting, we'll start there. Born and raised in Ravenna and grew up in a family that just loves hunting. So have my dad and 4 other brothers that are my uncles or whatever. They all hunt except for I think one of them. So they just kind of instilled this hunting mentality in me. We have like 600 acres-ish up in the UP that we hunt on, and then have a fishing cabin up there. It's like we're just out in the woods all the time. So from a very young age, I remember like I think I've said this on other podcasts, but like quick story is when I was learning about hunting, my brother was old enough to youth hunt and I wasn't. So my brother, myself, my sister, and my dad were sitting in this huge platform stand he made. And it's like 25 feet up in the air. Not really safe. There's no railing, nothing. But I'm sleeping on the platform, and my dad like just kind of kicks me to wake me up. And he said, "Hey, there's a buck coming. Wake up." And this big at the time for me was a solid 8-point walking straight at us. And my brother pulls up a shotgun and just nails it. And that was just from there. I was just like hooked. And so I don't know. That's kind of the background for me. I mean, I don't think there ever was a time where I didn't know what hunting was. My dad, when we were young enough, he always went out to Colorado and did elk hunts out there for like 6 years straight. So that's kind of the background on that. And then from a business perspective, I have no experience in business stuff. So my experience goes from engineering, and I took that and then kind of applied it to 3D printing because I fell in love with that stuff. It's something special when you can design something up on a computer and then bring it to life in a way, and it's quick. It's not like you have to send it off to somebody and then they're gonna turn on a lathe or turn on a mill or whatever and mill something out for you that takes time. Like you can just press a button and it goes. So that's kind of how I fell in love with this whole 3D printing stuff in a way. But I don't know.
So let's talk about like the, I guess, hunting style, because it sounds like for you from like having like a big 600 acres to hunt and having your dad with this big 25-foot platform, kind of like now like I stand on what I call a deck of cards, like that's what I hunt from. Like how did it end up being like you're one of the major players in mobile hunting products?
Yep. I think it started when we were going to Missouri and we lost our, I wouldn't call it a lease. It was more like we knew this guy and made really good connection with him and had access to his property, and he sold it. So we had to get creative and do public land hunting down there. And from there, I was like, oh crap, like what am I going to do? And so I bought like a muddy Vantage, I think is what they're called, tree stand, and tried to use that a little bit. Bought some, I think they were Hawks at the time, and tried to climb and tried to hang this tree stand in our woods and tried to learn how to do mobile hunting. And because I remember my cousins have already done it in the Missouri hunts down there, and they used a climber, and one of them forgot his saw when he went up there. And if you ever hunt in Missouri, like there's just not really good trees to bring a climber in down there.
No pole trees.
No, there's nothing. And so for them, it was like, you got to bring a tree stand. Like that's like, you can't bring a climber. And so I bought one and tried it. I just could not lug the weight. I'm just a smaller dude. And I don't know. I'm like, well, at the time I was like 160 pounds soaking wet. I mean, it was miserable trying to figure out how to hang this thing. So jumped into saddle hunting because I started just Googling like what's an easier way to hunt or what's the lightest method to hunting, and just stumbled into saddle hunting. And from there it was just like I fell in love with it. So started designing things up for myself and then kind of shared them with a few people, and then it kind of blew up. So
and so like I had talked to you a little bit ahead of time, like with the sticks, right? So that I get tons and tons and tons and tons of questions about sticks, and you had made the comment earlier that you've had most of these sticks too, and I haven't had like the carbon fiber sticks, and I don't care for the shikars. Just I think the moving parts on them, and I know they make a fixed one, but it just kind of like progress. But like everybody, wants to know what the best stick is, right?
Mhm.
So, Austin, what's the best stick? No.
There's not one out there, to be honest with you. I mean, for my eyes, I think you look at a group of 5 guys and you give them every stick that's on the market, and they're all going to choose one or the other. They're not going to all choose the same one, and it's just comes down to what's your preference when you start going into the woods. Do you want something that is just going to work and get you up the tree? Then go with a hawk and be done with it. Like, that's the cheapest stick out there that I know of. Or do you want something that's going to be super low profile and just pack down to nothing? Then grab some wild edge steps or something like that. I think for me, from my perspective, having all these sticks, you have to find what is the most important things to you. And I was actually talking to Greg Staggs about this a little bit, because he's done so many videos and they're like an hour long. It feels like a full feature film when you watch it, but you don't have any that's saying like, these are the sticks that will do this for you, and kind of coaching you up on like helping you find what is important to you, because they just tell you what's important to them. But for me, having all these sticks, like, I found that I want something that I can pack down to nothing, like the Lone Wolf Custom Gear minis or compact sticks, I think what they're called. Those things are perfect for my style. I can carry 2 on one side when I'm climbing up the tree and then 1 on the other, and they're not like huge and bulky and sticking way out. And then the other reason why I like those sticks is like when you put them on your backpack or your tree stand or saddle platform, they're not like sticking way out off your platform. Like the Beast sticks, I love those, but from a packability, those things are like the worst on my list because they stack like that tall, it feels like. I don't know.
Right.
But I don't know. That's kind of my take on sticks. I mean, I see some wild edge steps over there. I love those suckers. Like,
Yeah.
One of my favorite products that I make was for that, just because it felt like it was just simple, clipped right on your side, and then it's easy. I mean, I'd walk out in the woods this year. I think I did like 8 or 10 hunts with those steps, and I would just hook them right on my side and just start walking because there's just nothing to them.
Right. Yeah, those are the ones that Adam got me 2 years ago, and I love them because of the packability. They're a little bit heavier.
Yeah.
I mean, but like we've said it, or I've said it a ton of times on here, I'm not super worried about the weight because I've shaved off so much from going from, my climbing tree stand to the lock-on tree stand, to a saddle and a platform, a few extra pounds really, but the bulk of it. And like when I'm climbing up the tree, I might have a few more steps to put on because I'm, obviously single steps, but I'm pulling them out of the pouch and putting them on the tree. Boom, boom, boom. When I come back down, boom, 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 and they're going right back in the pouch. When I get to the bottom of the tree, I'm not wrapping up steps and sticking them together and then I just grab that thing and throw it in my pack.
Yeah, you're done.
So you're done, but
yeah, and that's the beauty of like finding a system works best for you. Like, that's important for you. You want to be, when you get down the tree, you want to be done and just start walking home.
Right.
Or whatever. So I don't know. There's so many different types of sticks. I think what you have to find is create like your list of things that are most important to you and like your style of hunting. Like for me, I want something that I don't even realize it's on my back from a packability. The weight is negligible. I mean, like, there's so many sticks that are so lightweight. Like, you got Tether 1 sticks that are 1 pound, and then you got the carbon fiber ones that are like 1.2 pounds. Like, they're all right around the same ballpark, and I don't know. The lightweightness doesn't affect it. I don't think it's as big of a factor as it used to be.
Right. I mean, Adam just got those for me, the Timber Ninja, but they're the aluminum ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I love those sticks. I like the feel of them. They're super solid.
Yeah.
And that's like a polymer.
I actually like that step. Like, I like the give to it. And most people don't like that. And I'm like, man, that's nice on your foot.
Yeah, everything. I put them on the tree and went up and I've, tried out the B sticks. Those are great. I mean, but I was like, well, shoot, the carbon fibers would be great, but we don't need to spend the extra money just to get the carbon fiber.
Yeah. And you saw mine on Saturday.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know what your feedback was on those or not.
No, they're great. The one thing that, the other thing about the Wild Edge is like when you get down on the bottom of the tree and you're sitting, and we hunt late season a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You grab a hold of that aluminum stick.
It's cold.
And, and I'm not wearing gloves when I'm doing that stuff because I'm trying to pack everything away.
Yeah.
Your hands are like sticking to it and they're freezing, you're freezing your fingers off. Well, the carbon fiber isn't going to be quite as cold.
No. Well, that's the other thing about the tethered one sticks, and I kind of posted about it on social media just to let people know, but titanium thermal conductivity is actually much less than aluminum, so when you touch it, it's actually warm. It's weird because metal, and most people don't think when you touch metal it's going to be warm, but that stuff it insulates. It doesn't like pull heat to it. Right. I don't know, this is my engineering brain. So when I got those sticks and I was like touched them out when I left them outside for like 6 hours, I went to touch them. I was like, why are these so warm? And then my brain just started like turning. I'm like, well, I don't know. That's just a feature that I don't think guys know of on those sticks, but I don't know. But
one thing that like brings up like an awesome point, like the way that I approach like when I get asked questions from people is that like I always want to know what their experience is, because if they have only ever used one saddle or their buddy had one, I'm like, well, or if they've never seen one before and they're trying to, this guy said this one's the best and this guy said that one's the best, and like it's like but they're completely different. You can't sit in like the original neoprene trophy line and then any new saddle and then be like, they're the same. It's just a saddle. Not at all. Yeah. And so with sticks and climbing methods, it's like for guys like that have never climbed or used any climbing stick before, like it's way different than somebody who's like John, who's went through the Wild Edge steps, and then he had the XOP sticks, and then he's seen the B sticks, and, it's like like what you want and what you liked and what you didn't like. But I think like hanging the first time you climb up with a set of sticks is not a fun experience like for anybody. And so it's like if you don't have experience, like I'm like I've used all of them, and I feel like give me no moving parts, give me just something simple, like easy, like
that's why you didn't like the Wild Edge.
Right. It was like, I don't know. I want to have to tie a knot every time.
And try to camp it over.
Yeah. And I hunt in a lot of pine trees, and then it doesn't like soft bark, and and I'm like, forget this. Like, no.
Here, John.
Yeah, John, here, try these. Like, people like them. Like, but what you got your thermal conductivity and your like whatever, like, that's all great stuff, but that's like that's kind of what I expected out of this podcast is like nerd alert. Like I'll just back.
Sorry.
No, because John's like, that's what, on here, like John, he's like a lot of times like ho hum, like, yeah. But he's so analytical and like all the stuff that.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
It's, he's over here building strings and doing stuff like when he's getting here. But it like, I feel like John's like one of these people, like what you said, he'd be the guy where you're like, hey, I want to make this. And he's like, well, I've got a lathe and I'll just take this and I'll make this. And I'll look at the homemade string jig. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that sort of like, when you're talking about, it's my engineering brain. Like that's John, that's every single conversation, like this whole weekend in the blind. John's like, well, but because of this, like you can't, do any of this thing or whatever. And so like from that perspective, I want to talk about the 3D printing side and like that whole thing, but because we were talking about sticks before, I just take a seat and go over in my corner and you guys talk about nerdy stuff. About one sticking, because that's the other thing that I get a ton of questions on, and I don't think. Well, I asked Austin about it, like, hey, like, tell me your setup and, like, what do you really think? And he had, like, the most honest answer that I don't think you're going to get on YouTube or any forum or anything from, like, anybody about one sticking. And your opinion of one sticking is?
I think it's a tool. I don't think it's the end-all, be-all. I think it's helpful if you're trying to pack light, and we talked about weight and stuff like that. It's getting to a point where it doesn't really matter. But with one sticking, it's just a convenience factor of basically bringing a piece of equipment into the woods. That's like a climbing stick. You have ropes and stuff like that. But like I was telling Adam, there's not scenarios where I would bring it in. Like if it's raining or has rained the past few days and trees are wet, like I'm not going to bring it in because if you ever watch people do one sticking, you have to push off the tree with like your knee and your toes and stuff like that to get away to bring the stick up. And if you ever do that when the tree's wet, it's almost impossible. Like you're just slipping, sliding, making a bunch of noise. I don't know. It's just not a fun experience. But and like when you watch YouTube videos of guys one sticking, try to find me a video where there's more than or at least one limb on the tree, because it's easy when you climb a tree that looks like a telephone pole. But when you have to unscrew your little Delta Quick Link every single time you hit a limb or whatever, it's kind of a pain in the butt. So in certain scenarios where you know what tree you're getting into, it's perfect. I mean, it's not that. It's a simple system, and it's pretty fun to feel like Batman at the end of a hunt. You're rappelling down, and you're done. You like what we were talking about. You literally rappel down to the base of the tree, pull your rope down, pack it in, and you walk out the woods. You don't have to stack a bunch of sticks and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't see it being the most used tool in my toolbox this coming fall, but that's just the trees that I have and the scenarios that I'm going to be in. But for certain people, I more power to them. But I don't view it as the end all be all. And I think like you had the Latitude guys on, and I kind of gave them a heads up, like, hey, you might want to be aware of this. Like one sticking's about to get a little popular here, just because of the repelling part of it. Is because everybody was one sticking before. They instead of repelling, they would just climb back down using the one stick the whole time. And I was like watching them, and I was sweating watching them do it. I was like, this is miserable, man. Why are you doing that? But I don't know. Now that you can repel, I think that's part of the reason why it's gotten so popular. Is guys are looking for that easy way to get up the tree and get down the tree.
Yeah.
Is the biggest thing, I think.
Yeah, but like I said, I don't think you're going to find a video where they say, well, I don't do it in this sort of scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of guys, like we had talked about before, that like buy all the stuff and some level are like validating their purchase by saying like this is the greatest thing ever, where they don't really have experience. And you've done it. So you've done it.
I hunted like most of November and December one sticking just to get familiar with it, because I knew I needed to come up with product for it. This is the biggest reason, because I knew that it was going to get big, and I had to understand what went into one sticking and try to bring products to market that made it easier. To be honest with you, it was fun. I mean, I enjoyed it. I got on into the spots that were super helpful to get to, that put me in a position to make a play on a deer that I was after. So, I mean, I don't know. You can go round and around on new products. So next year we'll talk about a different new way to climb a tree and whatnot.
The next hot thing.
Yeah.
But so I'd ask you, like, how close are you getting to deer? Like, because that's one of the things where you're always like, like John and I, especially with like the SRT guys or DRT guys,
mm-hmm.
I'm not doing that like ever. But of course, I'm not going to do that like, within 100 yards of a deer where I think a deer is bedded, like I'm monkeying up the tree or like doing any of that jazz. Yeah. So how close were you able to actually get, or how quietly, etc.?
Yeah. Where I was setting up and hunting, it was late season because I knew where the deer were primarily bedding and where they're going to, one of two food sources they're going to. And I would say I was in probably like 50 to 75 yards of where they're bedding. And so I was purposely setting up in spots that were safer for me, but I knew I was still relatively in the game. And I don't know, with one sticking, if you just take your time, like any other climbing method, it can be the quietest thing in the world. I mean, if you get in a scenario where you have to stop and there's deer coming, you just sit in your saddle and you just kind of hug the tree like a tree hugger, and you just sit there and wait. And I had that happen probably 2 or 3 times where I just kind of sat there and wait. And I don't know, it's not like a very loud, I mean, it can be if you're just trying to rush up a tree, but if you just sit there and take your time, it's not that hard, and you don't really sweat. And I was wearing like my full Fanatics setup, and I was doing this one sticking, so it's not, I don't know. I did have the bibs wide open, so maybe that helped a little bit, but.
And then just real quick, like I've seen a bunch of guys that are like selling off all their other sticks and all their other stuff and saying like, I'm just going to one stick, so I'm buying all this other stuff and that's going to be my only thing. Like, do you see that as a viable option?
No, definitely not. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird because I have so many sticks, so that's why I say like I couldn't imagine not just only using that one stick. There's going to be scenarios where, like, I think we're kind of talking about in Missouri, like you couldn't take a climber. Like, you're not going to one stick in certain parts of Missouri where the trees are like just crooked and going crazy. There's limbs everywhere. Like, at that point, I just start climbing limbs up the tree. But yeah, there's not going to be a scenario where you can literally only use one sticking. That's the beauty of sticks or climbing methods right now. Like, there's not one climbing method that's going to be perfect for every single scenario.
Right, like you said, it's another tool.
Yeah, and that's where I think for me, like having so many different products that I have had to use to develop new products for guys, I've realized that each one of those serves a great purpose for a setup. But like if I have the 0.5 by Lone Wolf Custom Gear, that with the compact sticks, there's no tree stand combo other than like Out on Limb's new tree stand they just released that pairs that well together. Like I just don't know a setup like in the tree stand world that even comes close to that. So I don't know. It's another tool.
This quarter for the Patreons, we have like one of the new beast stands on order that we're going to give away.
Yep.
So do you have one of those on order too, so you can make some have you seen it?
Yeah. I haven't seen it in person. I've seen pictures of it and whatnot, and seen a bunch of videos by like Tim, I think is his name.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got to check it out when we did the scouting workshop, and it's pretty cool. I'm sure it's changed like a little bit from then, but like, do you ever see yourself going back to a tree stand, or do you see that as like a tool?
Yeah, I see it as a tool. I don't see it as like I'm gonna be completely like tree stand hunting. Like I used the tree stand actually when I was one sticking just to get familiar with both of them because I kind of got the 0.5 and I was like I gotta get familiar with tree stand hunting because there's a lot of saddle hunting guys out there, but there's way more tree stand hunting guys. And like you ask anybody, like, what do you know about tree stand hunting or saddle hunting? I mean, and they're a tree stand hunter. Most of them are like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Right.
And so, yeah, saddle hunting is huge on social media, but from just every guy walking on the street that hunts, like some guys don't even have a clue that it's out there.
The other guys are like I was like, I ain't putting that damn diaper on. What the hell are you talking about? Like, what are you doing? The first time he was hanging in his yard, of course, he was hanging in the pine tree like this big in his yard. So and he's like kind of swinging from it. Like, dude, you're on crack or something, man.
You shake your head and walk away.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, you ain't getting me in that thing.
Yeah, no, I view tree stands. And the thing about saddle hunting that I don't think people totally talk about too much is, I don't know about you guys, but I can't sit still all the time in a saddle. Like, I move a lot more than I would in a tree stand.
I'm constantly like swinging.
Yep. It's almost like I'm kind of having fun swinging around because I'm bored, waiting for this buck to walk by. But in a tree stand, you sit still, like you just don't move that much. So I don't know. I think tree stand hunting, it serves a purpose in certain scenarios based on the environment or the place that you're hunting in a way.
And even like the tree that you're sitting in, because there's been spots like we always say, you got a saddle, you can get in any tree. You can get in any tree, but it might not be a perfect setup because your strong side, you still want to be set up on your strong side. And if the limbs are bad, it might be a stand, tree stand tree.
Yeah.
That's if you need to be in that tree, you might have to have a tree stand in your toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
So, I want to do like an entire podcast on this, and I've got a guest in mind. Because he still clings to this ideology. But for you, in the space that you're in with making products and people asking you, hey, can you do this? Can you make this? Can you do this?
Mm-hmm.
Is the climber dead?
Is the climber dead? No, I think it's not dead. And the reason why I know that is because I have a field staff and a few of them from down south, and they want a climber that's under 10 pounds. And they just have trees that suit a climber. And why would you use a tree stand or a saddle when you can use a climber, just climb up a tree? I don't know. I don't use one because I just don't have any trees up here that I would be like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to this spot, which has, And I think it comes down to like a percentage of trees that you would hunt out of in the area that suit a climber. That's why I think saddle hunting gotten so popular is like it. I feel like you can get in more trees than a tree stand. So maybe you're playing the odds of finding a better chance of getting into the best tree. I don't think a climber's dead, and I'd say that only from knowing what people down south are saying. And I've never hunted down there, but one of the guys on my field staff, his name's Ben, and he just constantly talks about climbers. And I'm like, dude, I don't understand. Like, why would anybody want to get in one of these things? But I don't know. Apparently there's something there that...
There's still 2 sitting on the shelf up there. They haven't been down in a couple of years. So.
Oh, yeah.
So, again, whether it's people that have absolutely no idea that saddle hunting and all this fancy, ridiculous stuff that we all spend way too much money on and you make fancy parts for.
Thanks for spending all that money on it.
Exists. Or, like, the guys that say, I'm just going to wear my saddle in, I'm going to bring a rope, and I don't need anything else. Like, I'm going to be the most minimalist, like, guy. We live in, like, this vacuum, right? And so we think that, so that's why I'm asking, because, like I said, people are going to be asking you, like, hey, can you make this? As an engineer, do you think that a 10-pound climber is a reality? Like, can it be done?
For sure. I think it's not something that can happen just like that. I think it takes the right minds to be able to do it. People who have experience in making that kind of stuff, whether it's their background, like they've made similar products or they have made tree stands. Like look at the Quistos. I always say their name weird, but yeah, they have all this experience and they're more than capable of doing it. But why are they not doing it right now? It's not easy for one, and I was told that there's a lot of liability that come with climbers because if you ever watch somebody climb with a climber and they forget to clip the bottom in, where's that? What happens when something bad happens and it falls down and stuff like that? So I think there's part of that, but I think there is a scenario where you could get from an engineering perspective, for sure get something that's under 10 pounds, but it's going to take some creative juices and I don't know, taking a few risks. I mean, like look at what Tether did. They brought titanium into the play. I mean, great job on them. I mean, nobody's ever done it because one, it's expensive, and two, it's not easy to work with titanium. So, I don't know, like a 10-pound climber is totally realistic, but you're gonna have to think way outside the current where everybody's thinking right now. You're just gonna be playing in a different area. That's, I don't know, it's kind of exciting and whatnot. I think we're gonna get there though, for sure.
Well, a couple things on that. Like one, like we talked to Sean at Trophy Line about, because people want that climbing platform for saddles, and it's like, the money that goes into it and like sales and everything. It's like, tree stands are not hot right now, but and so it's just a matter of like, do you want to put your money and production and everything into it? But then you talk about tethered and titanium. I mean, Jason Red doing the carbon fiber.
Yep.
And like rumor has it you've seen the saddle platform. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe you've even seen it in person. I've got pictures of it.
I haven't seen it in person, just pictures.
I thought you said you were going to have one to make some products.
Eventually,
talking to him. Yeah. But and I've talked a lot with Jason. I really like Jason, and mm-hmm. he's like, I don't care. I just want to do it because nobody's ever done it before.
Yeah.
So he's like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, so. He's not. I mean, he's trying to make money, but he's more of like, he's just doing it because he loves to push the boundaries, and he does it in a safe manner too, which is really cool. That's his background. So I don't know. Jason's an awesome dude. I'm excited for his tree stand too.
Mm-hmm. Now, like on that note, like for you, like how did this Genesis 3D printing like
blow up?
Yeah, I mean, like where obviously, I'm literally sitting in the middle of like two nerds who like to build things.
You had to sit in the middle so you stop us from going too far.
Stop it. Right. But like I feel like it's like when I first heard about like 3D printing, like I literally was like, I can't understand. They're like, yeah, it's this machine that just makes like stuff. And I'm like,
yeah, that's about it.
Out of what? Like, I don't know. It just like goes around and like makes like things. I'm like, I don't know, but I feel like it's like engineers or like people like people like you, like you do, like, but like I feel like that's something like totally like that John would like enjoy having. Like it was like, oh, I'll draw this up in CAD and I'll just do this and make some things and then,
That'd be sweet.
Mm-hmm.
and then so I assume that's how you started. You're like, oh, it'd be
Yeah.
really neat. So you get yourself a little thingamabob and
No,
So-
I mean, like in college, I went for mechanical engineering, and I mean, you go through school and you just design all this stuff up, and like we talked about, like sending parts out to get machined and whatnot like that. It just takes time, and you're in this theoretical world of like, I'm just gonna make this really cool thing that is in this computer, but doesn't ever come to life. And then here comes 3D printers, and I was in college when they started to get like more popular, but there wasn't anything that was like super user friendly. You're just communicating with it by sending like parts of G code that was really something that was really hard to learn and grasp and stuff like that. But yeah, for me it was, I don't know, like it was just college and getting that degree, and then I actually bought a 3D printer my senior year and just started playing with it, printing off little trinkets and desk ornaments and little doodads and nothing that was like mechanically like being used for anything, because there wasn't really any engineering grade materials to print with. So this is the best way I can explain 3D printing. Think of like hot glue gun that's on a bunch of motors, and it's just heating up plastic, and it's basically spitting it out where it's controlled. It's using G code, which is the exact same code that we used to use for like CNC machines back in the day. Now we're using a different type. I won't get too nerdy, but I mean, that's basically what a 3D printer is. It's using the same technology that we use for CNC machining parts, and it's just telling the hot plastic where to go, how fast to go, what temperature to be at, stuff like that. So it's a little crazy, but it's not anything that's, I don't know, it's getting more popular, I would say, but yeah.
Yeah, my buddy works for GE, or well, he works for one of the places here in Muskegon, and they've gotten rid of, I mean, a lot of the old, like, the patterns and stuff are going in and having it all machined. Now they got 3D printers that the prototype part comes out, and they actually have some that are doing it in freaking in metal, like
Yep.
printing it out in metal. Like what?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's companies that are 3D printing stuff for aerospace and
Yeah.
metal, and actually using it, like selling it
Yeah.
as is. And I'm like,
Really?
yeah, technology is just getting crazy out there. So yeah, it's pretty sweet. I'm excited. I'm getting all geeked for all the new stuff that's coming with all that stuff.
There you go. You can get one of the metal ones next, and you can be 3D printing your own platform.
I don't think I have $1.5 million right now.
Well, not yet.
So everybody, the website is but well, I mean, I guess you kind of outlined it there like a little bit just in where maybe it's heading, but at this point right now with the polymers, plastics, whatever, your media,
Mhm.
what are the limitations?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton out there. From a limitations perspective, I think choosing the right media, or film is what we call it in 3D printing world, that suits the type of environment that part's going to be in, whether it's going to be under load constantly, or be subject to like the UV light coming at it constantly, or changing temperatures constantly, being in very warm environments or very cold environments. There's so many different types of material out there that there really isn't a limitation. You can print anything you really want as long as you have the printer that can do it under like the right scenario, whether it's you have to build like an enclosure to keep it all warm in there. So like nylon is something that you can print with. I don't print with that because it's super sensitive to like moisture and heat, and it'll start warping when you print it and stuff like that. But yeah, there's not really a ton of limitations like we talked about. We're 3D printing metal now. I mean, you can really do whatever you want, but it just depends on how much money you want to put into your 3D printing setup to kind of get up and running and printing that type of stuff. So like I mentioned, I think I mentioned I had 9 printers, and I have 2 more that are resin-based printers, which is a totally different process. It's a pool of liquid plastic, and you're curing it with an LCD screen. And the reason why you would use this printer is you get very tight tolerances. So I use it on my camera mounts so I can get I get teeth or gears so I can get micro adjustments and stuff like that. I couldn't get that with my other printers just because the level of detail really isn't there. So I guess with my current setup or like just readily available 3D printers, the FDM style or the hot glue gun, your tolerances aren't as clean or tight as like injection molding or stuff like that. So yeah.
And so you said, okay, you started printing useless trinkets and doodads and whatever. Like, then how did that transition into like where you're at now? Like, what's that progression?
Yeah. So like when I was talking about going to Missouri and hunting public land for the first time, I was like at a loss, and I was like trying to figure out ways to get creative and make it more easy to hunt public land. So I just started printing up different designs that would help. So like for one, I was a new saddle hunter, and all I heard was you have to have a ropeman, and I'm like, okay, I'll get a ropeman, but then I couldn't find them anywhere because they were sold out literally everywhere. And then when I did find them, they're like $60 or $70 a piece, and I'm like, I don't got that much money to spend on this stuff. So I started like researching. I think it was just like different climbing methods that rock climbers use and try to move their Prusik hitch or Swabish distal, whatever you want to call it. They started using a pulley system, and I'm like, oh, I could 3D print something that just pushes the knot. That's all it's doing. And so I came up with that just to, I don't know, make it easier to adjust and climb more efficiently. And then I started printing different hooks and stuff to put on like my side to carry sticks up the tree, because I got sick and tired of having like paracord swinging my sticks all around, making like a musical instrument as I climbed up a tree. So I don't know. For me, I just started designing things that fit my style of hunting. Whether I didn't like the paracord because it was swinging around, I wanted something that was solid and it didn't swing. It just followed the shape of my legs or whatever. It stayed like parallel to my body, not all over and whatnot. That's kind of how this whole thing started. And I started like posting like pictures of stuff that I was designing and 3D printing to social media, just trying to get a feel of feedback from guys. I wasn't really looking to like sell it. It was more of just like, what do you guys think? Like, would this work for everyone? Is this ridiculous? Because when you are an engineer, you do design reviews, and you don't just do it by yourself, because if you did it by yourself, you would design this horrible machine that nobody would understand what the heck you were doing, because you miss stuff. You're human. So I just start sharing it with people, trying to get feedback, try to get the wheels spinning, and the just people helping me try to figure out a better system. And I don't know, that's kind of, I don't know, social media is beautiful and also very dangerous at the same time. But for me, for my business, it's been awesome. It's free advertisement. It's free just ideas, because guys will come to you. I don't know. It's a blessing and a curse, though.
Okay, so then you started making these things. You started posting them to social media.
Mm-hmm.
And then at what point did you say, I got to make a business out of this? Like,
oh, yeah. No, I think after, 2019 season, I did the figure eighters. And I just sold so many of those, and I talked to my wife about it, and we're just like, you have more ideas. Like, I had more ideas that I was going to sell, like, or sell to people and share with people. And we were talking, we're like, we probably need to do like an LLC and like go real, like treat this as a real business. And so then January and like February, I started selling more of it, and then I used Etsy, and half the guys there in the hunting community are like, what the heck's Etsy? I was like, just go ask your wife. She'll know. Right. So started with that just because it was easy to upload stuff and sell it. And then in March, started my own website, and that took off like a train wreck because everybody started buying stuff, and it was going to a different PayPal account that I accidentally typed in the wrong, like an extra C to my email or whatever. So that was a mess. But yeah, that's pretty much how it just got to a point where it was like, man, like I had more ideas, and I was already busy with just one printer, and we're like, well, we're trying to pay off our debt right now. That's all. That's literally how it started. Is we just wanted to pay off our student loan debt, and so we just said, let's do it. And then I bought that one printer, and then I had 2 more on order. Then I bought 3 more printers, And then I was buying more. Like, it literally felt like every month I was buying 1 or 2 or 3 printers for a while. And I was just like, I couldn't have enough printers to keep up. And then it got to a point where I couldn't keep up with my printers now. So then I shifted a little bit. But yeah, I think it just was one of those things, like, perspective of knowing, like, this is what I have in store, and knowing, like, this is just gonna get really busy. And so that's where we kind of took it a little bit more serious, which was exciting because we're debt free now, so something to celebrate.
That's awesome.
And so, like, how many products do you make?
If you asked me a year ago, I would have said 2. It would have been way easier. I think I'm up to like 35 now, or 34. I think. I don't know, it's just a lot, and I don't know. I look at what I have coming to, and it's like, man, am I ever gonna just stop coming up with like different little things and whatnot? But yeah, it's a lot, but it works.
Of those 35 products, and that just seems like wild to me. Not that you make 35 different products, but that, like, knowing, like, well, I guess, how long does it take? Like, when so you have 7 machines, and they run for X amount of time. Like, how long does it take to run? Does one machine run? Like, how many pieces do you get out of that? Because, I mean, in a perfect world, I would imagine that you'd have 35 products and 35 printers.
Yeah.
And then this one would just make this one and this one and this one. And then, when that one was done, then you had that many of that product, right? So
That sounds nice. I should have thought of that. Dang it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think for me, with each part's different. Like, my bow hangers that they swivel on a pin. I can only print one of those at a time, just due to the size of them, and also the material I use. I use a material called ABS, and I literally, if you try to put more on there, and it increases print time. So one of those bow hangers takes, I would say, like 4 hours, and if I try to print another one on there, it's now 8 hours. And that material is super sensitive to, like, warping. So if it cools down too fast, it'll warp and actually, like, split the layers. And so it's one of the things, like, I've learned that I literally can only print one of those at a time. Now, I use another material. It's called PETG, which is kind of a weird name for plastic, but it's like what your water bottles are made out of and whatnot. That stuff isn't sensitive to, like, cold air drafts and whatnot, but it isn't great for bow hangers because it's squeaky. You'll literally, if I printed a bow hanger and tried to use it, you would, like, hear it go squeak, squeak, and I'm like, well, that won't work, because I don't know, it's a great material, but it only works for certain products of my stuff, and I can print that a little bit faster, and I can just load up the printer, and I don't know, I can print 8 to 10 of, like, those platform hangers at a time, but your print time's now like 6 to 7 hours. And I've learned different things, like, it's going to get a little nerdy, but I've learned that if you use a larger nozzle, like the orifice or the hole that it pushes hot plastic out of, if you use a larger nozzle, you'll be able to print faster because you're using more material. So you're printing, like, thicker layers, so your layers will be bigger. Sorry if this is too much.
no, I mean,
But yeah, I've just learned over time, like, what can I do to make a better part and also speed it up without sacrificing quality and whatnot. So I think you have to give a little, like, we were talking before we started this, like, I'm also looking into, like, laser cutting certain of my products or water jet cutting stuff to help speed it up, where I'm not, like, having no inventory or low inventory for guys that are always messaging me, hey, when's this going to come back in stock? And I'm like, well, shoot, I wasn't planning on printing that till, like 2 weeks from now, because I'm focusing on these parts or whatever. So 3D printing is slow, and it just takes time. And I've learned to, I don't know, offload some of the stuff. Like, cleaning parts is one thing that I've learned that I just don't have time to do. So I hire that out to be cleaned. So I have people who, they're actually my cousins. They'll actually take a deburring tool and just clean every edge and whatnot, and I don't know, put all the bow hangers and stuff together. So kind of take stuff off my shoulders a little bit.
I
know it's a lot.
Well, I mean, I just kind of, like, am, like, one of these guys that, like, I'm like, I really don't get anxious about stuff. Like I don't have like that. I just pretty much take it as it goes. Like it'll be fine. But I just see that like in my mind, like Lucy and Ethel, like the conveyor belt just keeps coming. Like 4 hours here, 6 hours here. They're like, oh my god, these are done. Like I need to get one more. Like oh, I can't.
It's a lot.
I mean, like just trying to like wrap my head around that whole operation or whatever. I just like it seems like mind numbing.
Yeah, and it's harder when I get more products out there and whatnot. And I don't know, my wife and I choose a word, and actually my cousins and my wife and I choose a word for the year that we focus on. And my word is stewardship, like being a steward of my time. Because doing this, like, there's only 24 hours in a day. And I have a day job that I spend 8 to 9 hours at, and I drive 40 minutes one way to that job. So do the math. I really don't have much more time to really dedicate to this business. And so focusing on time is huge and making sure everything's in order and not just being off in left field one day and then off in right field the next day. I don't know, there's a structure to it that I try to figure out in a way. I think I figured it out at least.
So John, from your background of like, you're familiar with all of the CNC and all of that stuff. Like, what do you think of like, we had talked before about like some 3D printing stuff and like, can you 3D print steps and blah, 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 like that sort of stuff. Like, what's your take on like all of this? Because I mean, like I said, I see this just being like right in your.
Well,
like,
yeah. I mean, I would love to have a 3D printer. I mean, all that kind of stuff. I mean, because the sky's the limit basically. You can think it up and draw it up. And well, what I always thought about it though is like from your, like as a production point of view or looking at it, it's like, is it really like a cost efficient to print it? But when you're just doing like small, you can come up with 35 products. And I mean, what'd you start 2 years ago?
Year and a half.
Year and a half ago. So you went from 2 products to all of a sudden you're in 30 plus and they're full production.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, man, I mean, like we said earlier, it's come a long way.
Oh yeah.
At first, like, I was taking college courses and we had, like basic machining and CAD and all that. And then they had like the 3D printers and stuff. And it was like, that's like a toy,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
But now, I mean, especially for a small like niche that we're in, with the tree stick, saddles and sticks, and I don't know, maybe I'll start hanging out.
I was gonna say you're gonna buy a 3D printer after this, aren't you? No.
I need a bigger garage.
That's it. That's the other thing about 3D printing is I can design stuff up that can be 3D printed really easily, and then I'll take it to a machinist and I'll say, "Hey, try to machine this," and they'll be like, "I can't do that."
Right.
There's certain things like even at where I work at my day job, like engineers are literally choosing to 3D print things and put them on the production line because one, they can get it done faster because we're just busy and we just can't get parts out of our machine shop fast enough. And two, it's like I can design something up and not have to worry about trying to set this up to be machinable.
Right.
And yeah, and that's where our 3D printing where my day job is. Even for my stuff, like it can hold up to that stuff. It can actually do what you need it to do.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
So I guess like, from like a business type standpoint, you got the restaurants or the millionaires or whatever, and they got their first dollar that they ever made, like on the walls or like whatever. Like, what is the product, I guess, that you make right now that you're like the most proud of, or like that would like maybe took the most to overcome, or like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'd say the bow hanger. And the reason for that is because I designed it to work with any system that would, like, for any gear hanging system, whether it was like a paracord or the his strap. I think it's called the his strap. I never say it right, I feel like. Or just a 1-inch strap. I think there's a lot that went into that design to make it work with any type of setup. Now I've designed more intricate stuff, but I think that's one I would say that kind of jump started my business too. That's why I would say like that first dollar kind of perspective. Like, I mean, I did the figure eighters and those were very popular, but it was nothing. I literally can't keep my bow hangers in stock, which is awesome. It's a great problem to have. So I don't know. That's probably the one I'm most proud of.
So you're gonna get like a.
We'll take 3.
Yeah.
You're gonna get one cast in like 24 karat gold for like a chain, like for when you're balling out of control.
Is it weird if I did that? Or no, I'm just kidding. No.
No, he's got a 3D printer that prints gold.
Yeah.
Prints in gold.
I actually had one guy message me and say, "Hey, I bought this bow hanger from you. It was the very first one you sold, pretty much. It was like maybe one of 10." And he's like, "I'll send it back to you, man, just so you can keep it. And remember, this is like where you started." And I was like, "Oh man, I'm feeling nostalgic or something now." But yeah, it's been a long ride, man.
And so we talked about this earlier, and like in this, we'll call it community. John calls it a niche, like mobile hunting, saddle hunting, and whatever. Like, kind of what we've seen with saddles seems like, I've got a sewing machine. I can make a saddle.
Yep.
There's money to be made here. This is what I'm going to do. And for like what you said, well, I 3D print these things. I design these things that can be 3D printed like very easily. How do you, I guess, what have you seen like as the market of 3D printing companies or people that are doing it? Because it would seem like if you had a 3D printer, you'd be like, all right, well, I'm just going to print some money, and do it. And like, so I know that there's other guys out there, and there's a bunch of different things, and like Mark from DIY Bow, I talk to him
awesome,
all the time. Great guy.
Yep.
He's like, he made me a bunch of stuff. Like, that's funny because you're like right here, but I always talk to him and like, hey man, can you just make me this? And he's like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, well, he's a nice guy, so it's hard not to.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but like, I mean, I guess like, what do you see? How do you like see that? I don't want to say like competition, but like, all of that.
Yeah. I think it's something that somebody can pick up, and sure, they can learn it and they can go with it. But I think what helps me is I think he was right around the same time that I kind of started, or maybe even before. I don't know. He messaged me out of the blue, and I was like, oh, hey, it's another 3D printer dude. And so, but I was like one of the first ones. So I think having a following that kind of like stands behind some of the designs I've already come up with, because there's been a few designs that I've done, and there's been another company that kind of started up and printing almost identical things to me and serves the same kind of concept, looks identical to what I'm doing. And people kind of called them out for it and just said, hey, like, do you realize somebody else are doing this and whatnot? So I think there's always going to be competition no matter what kind of thing you're going to get into. It's just staying ahead of them is the biggest thing. So for me, I'm constantly thinking of new things that aren't out there, because I think that's what separates even like the stick companies and the saddle companies. Like, yeah, you can go buy a saddle from this company, but wouldn't you want to go buy it from a different company that's already done it and they're already starting on version 2 of it? Like, look at Tethered, like their Mantis. I had a Mantis, super uncomfortable. I didn't really enjoy it, but then they come out with a Phantom, which was leaps ahead of it. And then you see a bunch of other saddle companies that are kind of like, oh yeah, we'll incorporate this whole bridge locking system or bridge adjustable system, and they're not identical, but they kind of copied it in a way. And they didn't infringe on any patents because they didn't do identically what Tether did. But anyways, that's kind of the approach I've taken to it. I think a lot of the guys I've talked to are really solid dudes. They're just trying to make an extra buck here and there. And for me, like, I was trying to pay off my debt. I assume maybe some of them are doing that, so I give them the benefit of the doubt. And I really haven't had too many guys that are like, oh, I'm just going to copy exactly what he's doing and make money off of it. Because I think there's a side of it that they could do it, but at the same time, why would they do it? Because they would kind of get called out, and it would almost make a bad rap for them.
Right.
So
that was kind of like, I mean, we've seen it with Tethered's platform and Hawk.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that was like a complete knockoff. They took it and copied as best they could. So obviously you're not running patents on all of your.
No.
I mean,
no.
Is that even possible with a 3D
Yeah, you can, for sure, you can do a patent on a 3D printed part.
Okay.
I mean, the patent, it's 10 to 12 grand.
Right. I'm going to say you're looking at a ton of cash.
Yep. So, I don't know. I mean, you can do it, but the hard part for all of my designs have been accessory add-ons to other existing products. So, like, if somebody changes that product or discontinues it, and I got a patent on my product that only works for this product, I'm like, well, what's the point of I doing that?
Right. And like you're just saying, I mean, social media is, like you said, it can be great and it can be terrible, but it is a good thing for like you with a product. Yeah. Like, hey, yeah, you can see I come out with it. Now you're just copying it. The other thing I was going to say was someone like you who can take a product, like you said, you got all the sticks and you go out and you start using it. How can I make something to make this thing work better or easier? Yep. A lot of guys, they might have a 3D printer, but they don't have the know-how to go out or
from a design perspective.
For the design part, yeah, like how am I going to design? Well, what's going to make this better?
Mm-hmm. Well, talk about like on that exact same note. Like, granted, I had Mark.
What's your process?
But I had Mark do it for me. But I said, okay, the world that we live in now is like I have an idea, but I can't make it, and I don't have like however many $1,000 to have a machine shop do it or whatever for like my bow and the Tacticam. I was like, we were having an issue with Frank, his shooting off the stabilizer. It was always in the way.
Yep.
So I'm like, can you make me something that sandwiches up above
I love the term
in the riser, and then I'll just put a mount up there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, I can do that. And he's like, can you like elaborate on that a little bit? And I'm like, I just need a bolt with two things, like the pancake.
These things that come together does this.
Like, yeah. He's like, okay. But that's what I mean. Like, so for you have to, I mean, that's got to be really cool to like take somebody else's idea too and like bring it to fruition. Like if somebody says like, hey, this is what I want. Like,
yeah,
this would make this product so much better. This would make it so much better for me. And you're like, oh yeah, like I can do that.
Sure.
Like,
yeah. I mean, like, case in point is Jason from Timber Ninja. I mean, he sent me his carbon fiber sticks before he started selling them. He said, well, he called me, and I don't know how he got my number, but whether it was through my business page. I didn't even know I had it on there. He calls me, and he's like, hey, this is Jason from Timber Ninja. And I was like, what? What are you doing calling me? But anyway, so he just said, hey, I have my sticks here, and I saw you popping up on social media, and I'm like, man, maybe this guy could solve my stick issue. And he basically just wanted a better system that all his sticks would snap together. And so he's like, hey, would you be interested in this? And I was like, yeah, I just need your sticks though. And he's like, oh yeah, sure, here you go. And he sent them off to me. He's like, I just need you to send them on to the next person in 2 weeks. And the next person was like somebody from Kafaru or something like that. And I was like, I feel like I can't screw up here or something. So no, but it was one of those things like, it's awesome when guys come to you and have a problem and they're like, hey, I have this idea. Can you make it do this? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Elaborate a little bit. And like I've used that app. We talked a little bit about it, Marco Polo. Mm-hmm. Like that's been huge for me because guys can video chat and actually show me what they're trying to work through. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's gonna get to a point where guys are gonna, lean on people like me to do like what Mark's doing for you and come up with these things that you can't do on your own, but guys with like the skill set of like design and 3D printing could do. I mean, you could do what you wanted to do. You could take it to somebody who has a design perspective but doesn't have 3D printing in their background and they can machine something up.
But I also think like it's so cool for like us in this space or for like guys, and I mean, hell, maybe you may be too busy to do it, but for like the industry is like, to say like, hey, this is what I want. I just want this. And like when you're saying like where maybe somebody can do it, but they don't have 3D printing in their background, or maybe but I think what's important, and I think we're finding it more and more, and I think that's what people are finding valuable, is like, let's say I wanted to have that same sandwich thing made on Fiverr, someone could make it for me, but they probably don't have a hunting background, so they will have no idea like how it's actually going to be applied. Like,
Yeah.
so there's reasons why, you've made changes to the hook. That
Yep.
squeakiness,
Yep.
that guy in India on Fiverr is going to make that out of the
Whatever, Peggy.
Yeah. And it's going to be like, and you're like, that doesn't work. And he's like, it's exactly what you said. Like
That's what you wanted.
yeah, it does those things, So
Yeah.
I think having people like with that hunting mindset, that background, just like Jason has a safety background as he's applying it to, climbing and sticks and all this stuff.
And I'm glad he is the guy who came out with the carbon fiber stick, because nobody's touched it for so long because of nobody's known how to use carbon fiber in this type of application. And you bring this guy like Jason in who has all this background, and it's like, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. He's so much fun to talk to. He's he's a funny dude. But so I guess how has this affected your like hunting? Because it seems like there's so many people that we talk to that like, yeah, I want to get into the hunting industry. I'm going to do all this stuff. And then they're like, I don't even hunt anymore because like, and we're talking like, you're a steward of your time. You're, talking about like the amount of time that all of these things take. And then we see companies like Tethered, and everybody right now because of pandemic or whatever, but like, social media being a blessing and a curse, like they will just, vilify you.
Yeah.
If you don't have stuff when they want it, because Amazon has said, I put in my order right now. I get it on Tuesday.
So hard. That's been like the most constant struggle. Like, and I understand like people want their stuff, but I'm working a day job. I literally have only so many hours in the day, but yeah, it negatively impacted my ability I didn't even harvest a deer last year. Like I was just not able to spend the amount of time out there that I wanted to in an effective way. And I say that because I hunted, but I was trying and testing things as I was hunting. And I'm like, I got to do this because I need to make sure that I vet this part out or this product out. So lessons learned from 2020 was I need more guys, and I need more guys to help me figure this out. So put out field staff applications and found 9 guys that just fit my what I was looking for and whatnot. So yeah, it was so hard last year. It was frustrating. It was fun because I got to learn so much more about how to be an effective hunter in a setup standpoint. But it was super frustrating because I couldn't harvest a deer because I was so focused on that. But I don't know. I've learned.
All right. So what's next? What's the next step for Austin and Genesis 3D printing? And I mean, the next LLC is going to obviously be Genesis laser cutting and water jetting, because
it's just obvious, I guess. No, no, I think it's just getting more creative and how do you upscale in a way. I think the reason why I've been so successful and it's worked out for my wife and I in this business that we created is just because we're doing something that's creative and innovative and nobody's been doing it before. So I'm just going to keep riding that train. I'm not going to go, I really want to make a set of sticks that fits my style, but there's so many different styles of sticks out there. What's the point of doing that? So my focus is on how do I keep coming up with creative designs that are solving the issue of you're not as effective as you could be when you get into the woods. So we kind of talked a little bit, like I have a design that my field staff guys have tested for me, give me honest, great feedback, and I'm working through the patent process on it. So thinking of more designs that are creative and can reach a larger audience instead of just like saddle hunters or this type of saddle hunter that uses this setup or whatever, trying to hit a larger focus in a way. So that's kind of my focus for 2021. Is it now? Feels like 2020 keeps going. That's kind of like the focus of 2021, and then getting more creative on like the process of making these. Like 3D printing is great. You don't have to pay for a tool for injection molding. You don't have to develop all this machine ability in a sense. You can literally just start a design up, print it, see if it works. Nope, doesn't work. Keep going, find it works, and then print it till everybody gets tired of using it and they're on to the new fad. And then you're like, yeah, I mean, I've
injection molds super expensive. To
it
have
is
molds built. Mm-hmm.
I've got it. A few of my products quoted through injection molding because I'm like, man, I just need help, and I'm like, okay, quote this for me, and it's like, okay, for $12,000 we'll make your bow hangers work, and I'm like, I can't justify $12,000 because like who knows, like this new other bow hanger could come out and it's just a little bit better than mine and shifts the focus on that one. So I think it's one of those things like you got to get creative and have things that are unique enough that you can patent and protect yourself, and then also go into the injection molding process with an unknown. I'm going to sell this many because I expect the demand to be that high. So I don't know. Being a steward of my time and also like the resources and whatnot.
So one question I always ask is, what's your bow setup?
Oh, shoot.
What bow are you shooting?
You didn't even tell me this before we started so I could be prepared. I have a gearhead. I went from a B24 to a D24, which is just their Disruptor series. It's a short axle bow. So far, I love it. It's a super solid in my hand bow. Doesn't really move at all. It just kind of sits steady after I shoot. So I love it. The draw cycle is amazing. I mean, I've only shot 2 bows in my life. I haven't switched. I've just found bows that work and I just stick with them. The other bow was a Elite Z28. Like that bow, I'll go back to that bow in a heartbeat too. So that's the bow that I use. The setup for the sight, I've went between a trophy line React sight. I use that for deer hunting, and right now I'm trying out. It's a Copper John TST, I think is what it's called. Different sight that's inside the bow, so it's not sitting outside, so it's a little bit less of a profile because that's the whole point of the gearhead bow is why I moved to it, for just packing out and stuff like that. So that's my setup, I guess, from a bow perspective.
What arrows are you shooting?
I'm shooting the Cirrus Apollos. I use those a little bit, and I play with the Vulcans a little bit. Like them, very strong, sturdy arrows, and I mean they shoot pretty dang straight for arrows. I'm gonna talk heavy arrows right now, but my arrow weight was at like 600, and I had to bump that down just because I just didn't see the gain out of it from shooting out to like 40-50 yards. Just the drop was too significant that I had to bump it down. I'm like 530, I think, right now, which is still a little high, but I don't know, works out pretty well for me. The broadheads.
Yep.
I was gonna say, is that the next thing on the list? So I used the Annihilators last year, but didn't shoot a deer with it, so don't know how they work or anything. Before that, I was actually using the Toxic broadheads and put down 3 pretty nice bucks with those, and I think all 3 of them ran under 40 yards and crashed and died. So those suckers, I mean, they're crazy looking, but they worked. So, but they, I don't know. I always like trying different broadheads out and seeing what works and whatnot.
Cool.
So that was one of the things that we were going to talk to Austin about, like last year. Like we've been trying to get our hands on like a gearhead to like mess with.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And whatever, and like from like the engineering standpoint, like it was just strictly like packability. You just wanted that out of the gearhead because it just, when John looks at him, he just kind of like, and I'm like, I shot him at the show, and like they shoot great. It's way different. Like it's way different. You have to take your like head out of like this archery, like what you think is normal box. But like, so from your perspective on like shooting this bow and like it looks like it's an erector set. Like it's like to me like an engineering marvel.
Yeah.
Just flip it over and shoot it with the other hand. Like
it's unreal. I guess the big reason why I chose to do it or shoot it or buy it, in a sense, I bought it then I shot it. Was a sense of it's from an engineer perspective, it's kind of beautiful looking at it. That sounds really weird, but Skip from Gearhead, what he created was just, I don't know, it looks pretty sweet. But I think a lot of guys will look at it and be like, "What the heck is that thing?" No, that's not a bow.
Looks like a little bridge.
Yeah, but like when you shoot that bow, I don't know if you noticed it when you shot them. There's like no vibration. Like it just transferred all that vibration just so smoothly and uniformly. It's, I don't know, it's just dead in your hand after you fire. And I don't know.
So what's your draw length?
29.5. So
really,
yep.
So your angles.
Oh, it's tight.
I'm gonna say for me, 31 inch. I don't even know if they go to 31 inch. So
I think they have.
They have
if you
one
go
that
up,
goes to like 30 and a half, I think.
yeah, I think you have to go up to like the 30-inch axle to axle bow.
Well, but the crazy thing about gearheads, and like if you talk to Skip or like at the show, like he has all the stuff, but like before they created the technology, they had just like extended releases.
Yeah, that
That
crazy.
was like, 6 inches long or whatever, and you shot here and anchored.
Or you had this D loop that's like this long.
Yeah,
right, but then so now you're not looking through a peep.
yeah. I mean, they fixed it, but
Right.
like it's, whatever you're saying about like the string angle and all that stuff, like that's how they started just with that thing. So it's pretty crazy. But like I said, for an engineer to shoot like you're like, oh yeah, I'm shooting a gearhead, and John reverse engineers everything, and he's like, yep, now you're doing this, and your neck can't look through peep, and all these things. Like this is what I deal with every day in my life.
I don't feel that bad for you, though.
Well,
I mean,
it's all right.
look at it from this perspective. I'm an engineer, and there's another engineer that's using a gearhead, and it's Garrett DIY.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's something about that bow. I don't know what it is from an engineer perspective that it just draws us to it. I don't know. I'm not comparing myself to him because the dude's in another level. But yeah, there's something to be had when you shoot those bows. But the hard part is try to find one that you can shoot. There's no dealers that are around, but I don't know.
Right. So for people who are listening to this and they've got questions or they want to check out your stuff or, whatever, they want to send you the, $17, $20 and say, I want this tomorrow right now. Where can they go and
Amazon?
do that?
No. My business is genesis3dprinting.com. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram page that you can find us on. It's exact same thing, Genesis 3D Printing. So there's not another one out there, so you can't. We're not like an _1 or capitalize or whatever. No, so that's the best way. You can reach out to us through our email, which is on our website, or shoot us a message on Facebook or Instagram. So there's so many ways to connect with us. But.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming out and doing this, like live. Using your time, you say like I'm a steward of time. You've just been sitting here dicking around for an hour.
Oh, I'll send you a bill.
All right. Well, I think that's all we got for today. But thanks for stopping by.
No problem.